bola besishaya besibopha noma besedobola besishaya besibopha noma kubi siyaya siyaya noma kubi siyaya siyaya noma besedobola besishaya besibopha. Who left? Who right? Yamasa. Who left? Kita. Kila me. Kila bata. Samarumo. Rumo. Asicha. Where were you when I'm sit? Where were you when I'm dreamt? Sofa skichi. Emoye. Sofa skichi. Etati. Kichima, Sibram Konto Alliance, shoot to kill, Yamasa, kiss the poor, the farmer, kiss the poor, the farmer, brr pa, brr pa, attention.
I was calling on the stage the capacitated, the skilled, Ndando.
The CCT must remain.
Okay.
Sorry, now with former officials. We go down.
Ndando and Clement. CCT members, you will remain on stage. Only officials will go down. Then until we come back, we'll continue with the program. Over to you, Ndando and Clement. Thank you very much. And the former officials, DSG, National Chair, and the SG.
Just go in and build it.
Microphone.
Hello. It's so low. It's so low, guys. Hello.
Also, don't call because I'm using my phone on stage. I'll call you back.
Nakusakufika mabhosa. Bopha. Clement, come, let's rock them, come. Boss. Salubona izandla moyeni. Salubona izandla moyeni. Salubona izandla moyeni. Hey bo.
It's
Hayibo.
It's true.
Wosa.
Everybody, can you feel it?
Yebo.
Chester, everybody, can you feel it?
Yebo.
Awusile wena bakujeli man.
Sile wena bakutsheli man.
Ayusile wena bakujeli man.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Nikrani mafethu. Leshapu mafethu. Leshapu mafethu. Leshapu mafethu. Awubona ketha, ketha, ketha. Awubona ketha, ketha, ketha. Bona ketha, ketha, ketha. Awubona ketha, ketha. All right, let's get this party started. Let's go.
Well, essentially, the leadership of the EFF, led by Julius Malema, did give the elections manifesto of the party. The leaders of the organization, particularly the commander-in-chief of the EFF, unveiling the Winnie Mandela House, which is the home of the EFF, speaking about how they were expelled from the ANC. One, that National Disciplinary Committee of Appeals, then chaired by Cyril Ramaphosa, the ANC, then head of NTCA, now president, said that Julius Malema's fate had been sealed from the ANC. He had been expelled. They are now making it warm outside the ANC, saying that those whom are dejected, those whom have been rejected, those whom are jobless, those whom are stranded, they must know that they have a home in the economic freedom fighters Winnie Mandela House. Julius Malema going on to unveil the elections manifesto of the economic freedom fighters, speaking about how they will build plants of recycling in every municipality, saying that they will be providing services, saying that there will be a property wealth tax for the rich and that the rich must subsidize the poor, saying that there will be no tenders of cleaning and security in the EFF government, that people will be employed by the EFF government. That is what Julius Malema, the leader of the EFF, was essentially unveiling to these thousands of EFF supporters who were gathered here. They are about to unveil the Winnie Mandela House right now. Leaders of the EFF, the CCT, all of them are facing towards Winnie Mandela House. The officials of the EFF have gone down. That is the president of the EFF, Julius Malema, the deputy president, Floyd Shivambu, the SG Marshal Damini, the deputy secretary general of the EFF, the treasurer general, unveiled, the national chair, Veronica Mente. They are about now to the EFF House. They are about to unveil the headquarters of the economic freedom fighters who are live, sir. Please wait. We'll attend to you later. They are now about to unveil the headquarters of the economic freedom fighters. The former officials of the EFF, Chair, the former treasurer. You've also got Tagiwa Mkhalifi, who's the former deputy secretary general. She has also went up with the EFF officials. You can see the barricades, the balloons are going up as they launch their new home, the headquarters of the third biggest political party in the Republic of South Africa. They now own their own home, Winnie Mandela House, named after a struggle stalwart, someone Julius Malema associated with from the days of when he was the president of the days where he was the ANC Youth League in Limpopo, to when he finally became the president of the ANC Youth League, which ultimately led to his expulsion from the governing party. They are now celebrating the home, which is their revolutionary home, the economic freedom fighters. They will be moving away from Bramfontein and coming to the Ghandi Square. The councillors of the EFF have been told the EFF job, it's a diploma. You can't take international travel as a councillor of the EFF without the approval of the EFF. those are some of the issues. EFF councillors have to understand to say that they are public representatives. They have to be reachable a day, and that their cell phones have to be on. They have to carry out the struggles of the community. They have to make sure that community members who have been impoverished, they get access to social grants. The leader of the EFF saying that they have cash for the land to build a school in Alexandra. After Mama Mandela birthday, Winnie Mandela only afraid to associate herself with the African National Congress. As I hand over to my colleague Natasha Puri to speak with the editor Mzandi Lembeche.
Winnie Mandela, Winnie Mandela,
And what you're seeing right now are visuals of the EFF headquarters now being unveiled as they promised in time past. We heard there the CIC of the EFF on the stage delivering what he calls a contract of commitments. And of course he listed a numerous number of commitments that he'll be making to the people of South Africa when and if the EFF actually wins the municipality. But to actually unpack the CIC speech, I'm joined by the SABC's political editor, Ghandi. We heard what the CIC of the EFF, Mr. Malema, had to say, and of course, I mean, he basically humanized his manifesto.
Oh yes, I think what I picked up is that they're trying to appear as a party matured and ready to govern. If you heard his earlier speeches, he said, because we are represented in all wards across the country, so let's tell you what are the problems facing the people. So he's trying to position his party as the party that is now next in line to govern. But in terms of other promises, really, I think it's something that we have heard before. Even if you listen to their slogan now, previously it was our land, our jobs now. So all they just did is our land, they just translated it into the African language, I think Zulu or Nguni. So, but all in all, I think they were just trying to say, to put themselves as the alternative. You would have heard when he was speaking about some of the things that they may have done. Of course, as he was mentioning some of the achievements, there were others which were not necessarily true. What comes to mind is the issue of the vote of no confidence, for example. I think the other party that really had proposed that. But this is a political environment, so where he is able to say whatever can help advance their achievements or their positive image to the people, he will certainly do.
In 2016, the EFF were kingmakers, and this time they've indicated that they are ready to govern. We heard Mr. Malema on stage, being very assertive and telling EFF councillor candidates that if and when they are councillors, there'll be no time to actually play within the EFF.
Oh yes, as much as some of the things that actually it would be interesting to see them win, let's say, a ward or a council, to see some of the things that they are saying if they are really implementable. Because in terms of their manifesto, how they would go about, they are even saying, should they win a municipality, every school, remember, that is a competency of provincial and national government. But they are saying, they are so determined, they will actually make sure that those schools are taken care of. But of course, this is the election time, so should it happen that they win, this is when these things will be able to then hold them to them. But in the event, obviously they don't, when we go back to them, they'll say, well, you did not give us a chance, so we would have done those things. So it's interesting though, but given the current environment politically, they possibly feel they have a chance in some of the municipalities that are low-hanging fruit. There's been a lot of infighting within the governing party that doesn't make the situation easy for the governing party. Of course, we'll hear about them tomorrow. But today, the EFF feels they've done enough to convince South Africans to win.
They've made a number of commitments, and I mean, in your own view, are these actually feasible? Just listening to some of these commitments that they were making, if they do, however, win in a municipality, where's all this money going to come from?
Well, it's in two parts. Some of the things he's speaking about really are basic things that everyone who's employed is supposed to do. So those ones, if they follow what they've said, that they can do. But some of the issues relating to the issue of resources, it may be very, very difficult because as a country with poverty, with unemployment, there is not a lot of money. Some of the promises, honestly, would be very difficult to achieve specifically because the resources would not allow that. But in matters where really people are lazy to do their job, that can be done with speed.
Let's just poke some holes into, some of the commitments that they were made. He mentioned that the EFF municipality will implement a property wealth tax to subsidize indigent families.
Well, it's going to be very interesting. You see, this is basically a promise. So if you promise someone something, you are likely to say anything. Because promising and doing are two different things. As you were asking earlier, yes, there are those promises that are easily implementable. But some of them, honestly, you have to look at the context of us as a country. We operate in a space where we are struggling. There's lots of poverty. There's lots of unemployment. So one of the reasons there's lots of that because we simply don't have enough money. So the question is, some of the lofty ideas, how do they get implemented without money? That is the big question.
Talking about promises, Mzwandile. In 2019, you remember that Mr. Malema had promised that they would build a private school, especially for those who are underprivileged in Alexandra, and will cater for them and their needs. He's just confirmed today that they have bought the land in cash and they've secured that land for that school.
Actually, I saw a party already looking ahead to 2024. If this is achieved now, when they come back in 2024 to campaign, they will be able to say the promise we make is the promise we keep. So it will be very interesting. I think as us as news media, we are looking forward to see them turning the sword. And if they do that, it will certainly be a shot in the arm for their campaign.
You talk about a forward-looking party in 2024. I mean, we've been hearing utterances, especially from their deputy president, Mr. Floyd Shivambu, saying that the EFF is the government in waiting. If they don't take it in 2014, surely they will take it in 2029. How do you see this panning out?
Well, at this stage, the ANC remains very dominant for now. I'll tell you why. I know the ANC has problems currently, but just look at some of the by-elections just recently, with all their problems, with all the corruption-related stories, people still voted them overwhelmingly. So the question is, within that space of time, will that shift be sufficient to give them power? I'm not sure. Remember, they're still the third biggest. There's still DA ahead of them. But of course, people will decide on their own.
You know, I asked Samuel this question earlier on, and I hope to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Could we use the by-elections as a barometer for these upcoming elections? You mentioned the fact that, I mean, the EFF hasn't done so well in last year's by-elections, the Super Wednesday elections. They haven't won an award. And now, can we use that as a barometer to actually judge them in these forthcoming elections?
I'll answer you in two parts. Number one, you can to some extent. Number two, you can't, because the mood tends to change. The picture tends to be overall. But in some instances, it tells you that people are still loyal to a particular party. That's why I remember when we did those by-elections, it was after lockdown, so it was a number of them. So it was more like a local government election. So you wanted to get the sense and the feel of the people. People still expressed exactly like they expressed before. So, which is a bit of an indication. But now it's a whole new ball game. The mood changes, everything changes. Will they still feel the same? Only time will tell.
Indeed, only time will tell. But let's just also, talk about their growth as a party. We spoke about this earlier on with Samgel. I mean, judging from how they did in 2016, getting 6.3 of, the national votes, 2019, getting about 10.7%. And now, I mean, what do we anticipate? I spoke to Mr. Ghandi earlier on, and he had said that he expects double digits for sure.
So chances of them growing are quite high, given the difficulties within the governing party and actually within the opposition party, the DA. Remember, they've had their own problems. We may not be talking about them now, but they've had their problem. That is why in some of those municipalities, they've been losing what? They've been losing to Freedom Front Plus, even to the ANC and to the Patriotic Alliance. So clearly, the two biggest parties are having their internal challenges. So they may then benefit because they seem to be the party for now which is held quite together, maybe by the leadership. But as for them growing substantially, I'm not sure.
Let's put a focus on the eThekwini municipality, of which I've got their eyes set on it. I mean, you spoke about various other political parties like the ANC and the DA having their own challenges. We know that the ANC has challenges in eThekwini municipality, but it's quite interesting in that very province, the EFF's numbers have grown. From 2016, it was 70,000 to 2019, it was over 300,000. And the man at the helm of this was Marshall Dlamini. What do you think their chances are of actually taking over eThekwini?
Well, taking over, maybe they're taking it a bit too far, but in terms of benefiting, they are quite likely. They are actually going to be benefiting from the ANC's internal challenges. they are actually using the issue which is dividing the ANC right now, the issue of the former president. So you would see some of the people who may be sympathetic to the former president not happy with the current ANC. Many of them actually have said, well, we are not necessarily EFF, but because we are not happy, we may just lend them our vote. So they are looking at that and saying perhaps a greater number may be not happy and then vote for us. But what normally happens in the election times, people of the ANC sometimes would forget about their problems and vote the ANC back and fight afterwards. So the question is, will they still do that? Or this time around they'll say, it's time we show that we don't want this division and then we lend our vote elsewhere. So the EFF is basically saying, because in KZN we have seen growth, there's evidence in 2019 where you saw that we grew, the chances of us growing in municipalities are even there. So that is why we must just go for the big one. That's why they are saying they are going for the Ethiopian municipality. Remember, as much as the ANC won that municipality, it dropped from about 67% to something like 55%. So if that drop continues, they may be the kingmakers there.
I think my technical producer is trying to whisper something in my ear. I believe, Bambeje, that the placard is being unveiled there of the Winnie Mandela house. And I mean, just speak to that and speak to the significance of that.
Oh, well, when Julius Malema was speaking about the issue of Julius Malema, he basically became animated. So that means they are really passionate about this, and then in fact they really want to.
Bambeje, I'm going to have to cut to you. The family of the late Umama Winnie Mandela is actually speaking right now. Let's just cross to the podium. I understand.
As we celebrate and honor my mother's 85th birthday today, it is fitting that you, on this auspicious day, honor her by not only unveiling your building's name in her name, but by also launching your local government manifesto. Your actions speak directly to why she had so much time and respect for the EFF. You, the EFF, have been one of the few to continue remembering, honoring, and embracing the memory of my mother, the mother of the nation, which I and my family acknowledge. My family will never forget her immense role in the liberation of our country, South Africa, and refuse for her name to be forgotten, like so many other women have been. Again, I would like to express how delighted we are as a family that you are naming your headquarters after my mother, and we are extremely grateful for all you have done and continue to do. Thank you very much. And I want to say thank you to the leadership for always remembering us. And I must say I was very touched to hear my sister's name being mentioned. My sister who fought valiantly for the freedom of our country. Thank you very much. I also want to say that I come from a family where we do not discard our friends because they have joined other parties or started other parties or other movements. Okay? I want to remind you that I come from a family where we are all embracing and love everybody. So thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Siyabulela, Mamuzana.
Well, that was the family,
We are honored
the daughter of the
indeed.
late Umama
Now,
Winnie
moving on.
Mandela Zenani, just thanking EFF leadership for what they've done in memory of the late stalwart, who is actually, well, we actually are celebrating her birthday today. Let me just bring in Ubambeje back into the frame, and of course we were just still talking and still unpacking the significance significance of, unveiling the EFF's new headquarters, which are actually named after the late Umama Winnie Mandela?
Oh yes, I was saying, I think before we saw what was happening, the way Julius Malema got animated when he spoke about this home. He went back to remind the people how they were kicked out of the ANC. He said, when we had been told you should go, we went and prayed. And then from there, we went straight to Mama Winnie Mandela's house. So because we were welcomed there, so that's when we felt this is where we could be. So clearly, they've kept their promise. And then I was saying earlier, it would be interesting to see that sort turning in Alexandra for the building of that Winnie Mandela School. Yes.
I mean, you mentioned quite an important thing. He mentioned on stage saying that, they were told that it was cold outside the ANC. And he's saying that he's here to confirm that it's actually warm outside of the ANC. They've managed to make it warm for themselves outside of the ANC.
What he's basically saying is that they have been able to create an environment which will be able to keep their political futures quite on. So yeah, sometimes English can be difficult. But remember, when we talk about Julius Malema, he once said, he said, speaking to the media, he said, put your archives. One day, I will lead this country. And then, but people said, but you are no longer part of the ANC. He said, one day, I will lead this country. Look what he's building now. Think about what he said then. He has just said, it's actually not cold outside the ANC. It's actually warmer. He is basically saying, my political journey continues, and at this rate, I'm on the right path. The question is, as the party grows and develops, we know the challenges that come with it. Will it not be faced with the similar kinds of situations we are seeing in the ANC and the DA, for example? If they are able to hold it tight as it grows, maybe, just maybe.
They've also said that they want to establish anti-corruption units within their various municipalities. But I mean, some would say it's kind of contradictory because there's still that VBS cloud hanging over some of the EFF leadership.
I think that's what perhaps the biggest critics of EFF say, that what they say on the left, they don't do on the right. So clearly, they will have to lead by examples in many areas of life and what they are talking about. So if there are certain things they are proposing, they must be seen to be doing that. If they do that, perhaps people will start believing them. But if you say this, and I think Malema was clever on this one, when he spoke about taxing the wealthy, he knew that the critics would say, but you are the one who are living with the wealthy. And then he went ahead, he said, well, you will tax me, I live in Sentin, so I'll be one of the tax. So I think he's trying to, as you know, I said earlier, they are trying to project themselves as this mature party that is ready to be the alternative. One of the criticisms that South Africans make as we are going to the elections now, and people will say, hey, we are very angry with the ANC. But then the next question will be, there is no alternative. So I think that's what they are trying to create, to say, as people get fed up with the ANC, they must know that there's an alternative. Because in most instances, people will say, we are fed up with the ANC. But anyway, there's nothing else, we put it back. So the strategy of the EFF is to try and fashion it as a plausible alternative organization, so that if a good enough number of people say bye-bye ANC, they benefit. Anyway, they fish from the same pond.
I just quickly want to wrap this question in. Bonzo in studio will actually forgive me. What can we anticipate from the ANC as they also will be launching their manifesto tomorrow?
Well, I honestly think it will be something that we've always known about. We've gone to the people, they've told people what is it that they want, and then this time around we'll do it better. But I guess the question is, what would have been your track record? Would you have been proud of the previous 5 years? Is the record that you'll present to South Africans be convincing for you to be sent back to power?
Thank you so much, Mr. Ghandi. And of course, that is the SABC's political editor, Ghandi, just unpacking, the manifesto and some of the commitments that the EFF had made. Should they actually, win in some of these municipalities, that they're actually contesting all aids. And of course, as the SABC, we've been here throughout the day, throughout the morning, just giving you live coverage of the EFF's manifesto. Now that this one is done and dusted with, the ANC will be actually, holding theirs. I'm struggling to hear my technical producer there in my ear because of the noise here. But of course, as the SABC, thank you so much for tuning into SABC Channel 404 and watching the EFF's live coverage of the 2021 manifesto. As from me, Natasha Piri, Samgela Masego, Zandi Lembeche, the guys behind the cameras, and of course the technical crew, thank you very much. It's back to you in studio.